They say all good things must come to an end, and after lots of reflection, many thoughts running through my head, really since like late October and early November, it is best that TSOW come to an end today. But this is not going to be a sad experience, much to the contrary. We are going out with a bang. I'm offering my 2025 season Holy Wallowa Awards, and the Ducks are paying the price in more ways than one. This is not goodbye. It's see you soon. I'd see you very soon here on the final edition of That Show Out West.
This place has everything. In fact, the grass is damn green in Eugene.
That performance deserves a Holy Wallowa.
It's a feeling you cannot explain.
This place is louder than any other venue in the Big Ten.
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon!
And welcome to that final show out west for that team out west, a part of the Believe In Podcast Network and presented by FanDuel. I'm Ted LaRue. I can hear some portions of the internet shouting at me right now, Ted, say it isn't so. Well, it is so. It's very interesting, a relationship that we have in like shows that we watch on YouTube, podcasts that we listen to. There is a relationship that is formed. I feel like people that are good at hosting these types of programs, maybe I'm one of them, maybe I'm not, have a connection with their audience. And I feel like we've formed a connection over all of these episodes. 73 are in the books. This is number 74. As far as a full episode of TSOW is concerned, there were some like shorter videos when the thing started last January 4th, 2025, up until January 19th, today, the day of the national championship game. But as I was saying, there's a connection that's made, and you kind of get in this routine where it's like, hey, when this podcast is uploaded, boom, I listen. It's a part of my week. It's a part of my drive. It's a part of my commute going to work. It's a part of your rhythm. And same thing, on the YouTube side of things, however you consume a show. And I know there's some of you out there that consume this show in that way, where it is a part of your week, where it is a big part of, getting ready for an upcoming Ducks game on a Saturday, or getting you through the spring months, getting you through the summer months, things like that. So because it has maybe become that much of a part of some of your lives, I certainly owe you an explanation as to why this show is coming to an end. I want to be very open, and I want to be very frank with you. This past year has been a challenge. There have been many challenges with the additional things that I willingly signed up for all the way back in last January, and then with the spring and when I started writing for Scoop Duck. But here's the fact of the matter. I am 34 years old. I have a full-time job that is not your standard 9 to 5. Some days I am going in at 9 and coming home at 5. Other days I'm going in at noon and I'm coming home at midnight. Some days I'm going in at 11 and coming home at 8 o'clock. It's a very interesting schedule that's very dynamic and has a life in and of its own. It's got a heartbeat in and of its own. So when you combine the responsibilities that I have just in normal life with the full-time job, and then also doing this stuff on the side, like when I started Big Ten Ted in 2020, that kind of got a little bit bigger, and it got a little bit bigger, I put more effort into it as time went on. And then when this kind of came up, there were some people that were nudging me and said, dude, the Oregon people love you. You should maybe think about, doing separate Oregon content. Of course, I've been following the Ducks since 2007. I'm like, yeah, that seems like a good idea. And, when you go through the off-season months, when you go through the spring, when you go through the summer, everything it doesn't seem so bad, right? It seems very manageable with the Big Ten content, with the Oregon content, and then you throw in the writing over there, and you think you can do it all. Like I have always been a dreamer, right? I have always been one when an opportunity is presented to me. A lot of times I don't think, I'm just like, yes, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm very much, I'm maybe not as cautious with new opportunities. I jump in, and I jump in with a lot of passion, and I jump in certainly with a lot of excitement. But when the season really started, it kind of like the gravity of everything and the pressure kind of everything was kind of put onto my shoulders. And I could tell very early on that something had to go. Something had to go eventually after the season. And then, like I said in the beginning, late October, early November is really when a lot of those thoughts started to creep into my head. And, with all of these things happening and all of these responsibilities with these shows and then with my job and then with my life, I kind of looked myself in the mirror and be like, okay, something's got to get axed. Something's got to go at the end of the season. That is the fact of the matter. And then when I kind of thought about this decision, I kind of really pondered it a lot. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of thoughts kind of went through my head, and I'm like, TSOW would not exist if it weren't for the fans over at Big Ten Ted kind of encouraging me to do something like this. Like that was the foundation was laid all the way back in 2020 during COVID when BTT started. Okay, and then it eventually built up, and then this opportunity, of course, presented itself. So I could not, when I had to make a decision, I'll be like, dude, I got to clean up some time in my life. I got to make time for other things. More responsibilities have kind of come onto my plate over this past year. And it's interesting, as you get older, they say the day is 24 hours long, but as you get older, it seems like it's 23 hours long, 22 hours long, 21 hours long. Some days this year felt they were like 19 or 20 hours long, and I just didn't have enough energy. It just didn't seem like I had enough time in the day to be able to accomplish everything that I wanted to accomplish. So, kind of need to make more time by maybe getting rid of some things in your life. So when I kind of looked around, I'd be like, I can still talk about Oregon pretty often over at Big Ten Ted. So unfortunately, these are kind of the decisions that need to be made, and that's why this show is coming to an end. So I'm still going to be talking a lot about Oregon over there on BTT. There's no question about that. It's very interesting. When I started Big Ten Ted back in 2020, it was at a very interesting time in my life where all of my life, my dreams were being, whether it was a journalist, whether it was a sports broadcaster, that was my full-time career. That is what I wanted to be. And at that point in time, at my job, I kind of had to switch from the on-air portion of things to kind of the behind-the-scenes production side of TV at that point. And that's kind of where, career-wise, is where I sit really today. And also at that time, I still had the itch to kind of talk about sports. And that's where my love of college football started with Big Ten Ted in 2020. And I'm like, what if I could use this as a springboard to being paid to talk about college football, or maybe springboarding it into some type of job or career down the line? Scoop Duck offered me that opportunity this year, and I am eternally grateful for everything that I learned along the way, being a part of the journalism world over there, a part of the On3 Network. Big thank you to Justin Hopkins and the team for allowing me to be a part of that. But I think through that experience, I kind of learned that world, that goal, that aspiration, it's maybe not for me. It's maybe not what I truly, truly wanted. I gained a ton of respect over this past year. I gained a ton of respect for people that have to pump out 2 articles a day, 3 articles a day, that do that on a full-time level. That is a grind, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I've been a part of this media grind in radio and TV and all these other forms of media, but that's a different type of grind that I wasn't really used to. And it was kind of very fulfilling that, after this experience, I kind of found out I just want to sit at home and I just want to talk about football. I don't need this to be a full-time job of any sorts, but I do need to have some mental clarity. I do need to kind of clear up a lot of these challenges on my life that kind of happened over the past year. So I'm just grateful for this whole year. I don't really, you might think, well, Ted sounds like he kind of regrets some of this. I do not regret any of this. I learned so much over the last 365 plus days. And it's been awesome. It's unfortunate that something had to go, but I lead a pretty busy life. I'm thankful for every one of you that's kind of allowed me to get to this point, allowed me to kind of talk about your team and have me kind of a little bit of an outsider be kind of welcomed into this subsection of the flock. So that's a lot of the reasoning why this is indeed the last dance of TSOW. But now it's time to talk about this team and this past season. We wrap up our 2025 season highlighting some of the best players on this team. Our Holy Wallowa Awards. We begin as we always do with our honorable mentions. Now, 2 names are not on this list where if you were to ask me during fall camp who would have been a Holy Wallowa honorable mention at the end of the year, who would have been a Holy Wallowa winner at the end of the year, I'd probably say there was a 70% plus chance that either of these guys would be on this list, but they're not when all is said and done. That being Decorian Moore and Ife Obadegwu. Now, throughout like late spring ball, throughout the summer and fall camp, all anybody was talking about, it's like, there's a lot of uncertainties in the defensive backfield, but one that we felt really confident about was Ife over there. And there were times and there were games this season where Ife played a lot like his name. He was Ife. That October game against Indiana, they attacked him a good amount, and he couldn't really kind of keep up with Elijah Surratt on that side of the field. I thought overall he played pretty good at times, but, when you got Brandon Finney and how he really emerged this season on the other side, you're kind of overshadowed. But I think Ife eventually is going to really progress into a really good player. It's just this was his first year of college football. Not everybody's going to be Jordan Davison. Not everybody is going to be Brandon Finney. Okay? Those are kind of rarer cases to come in straight out of high school at a program like Oregon and play at that level. I still have a lot of confidence that Ife is going to be an all-conference player when all is said and done. I could see a pretty big jump from year 1 to year 2 for Mr. Obadegwu. And then Decorian Moore, just under 500 yards receiving. I think it was 3 touchdowns when all is said and done. Certainly there were bigger expectations production-wise when the season started, but he didn't play the entire month of November. He was out with an injury. And then when he got into the playoffs, he was targeted here and there against JMU, Texas Tech, and Indiana. But he was not the playmaker that all of us expected him to be coming out of Duncanville High School this year when we were talking about him during spring ball and summer and also during fall camp. And I think a lot, obviously injury has a lot to play with that as well. Like his last really impactful game was Rutgers, where I think he scored and put up a pretty explosive stat line. But Wisconsin, that was the last game before his injury, and that was the last Saturday in October in that raining game in the Grateful Ducks uniform. So, it's a little bit hard to judge Decorian. He certainly popped at times this season, but I think there's other guys that have a little bit more body of work, especially towards the end of the season when it really mattered, making big plays to ensure Oregon's college football playoff position. But I'd anticipate Decorian Moore would be on this list if this list were to exist next year. Maybe I will. Maybe it will exist over on BTT in some form. But let's get into the guys that earned the honorable mentions. Jaden Kennedy, man. 39 tackles, 2 interceptions. He exceeded everyone's expectations. I think when people looked at Jaden coming into the year, it's like, okay, that's a depth piece, and there were many people saying, if Jaden Kennedy's playing in the starting lineup, we got problems. Well, Jaden Kennedy was in the starting lineup, and he gave the opposition problems. I'll certainly say that. But, he was maybe looked as like a dime back, that extra defensive back when they come on the field. But he became a starter very quickly at the star position, overtaking Dalen Austin, and he was an impact player, man. I mean, the interception against Washington, you remember that one? 4th down stop against Texas Tech in the playoffs, that was very crucial. Just veteran reliability back there. When a play needed to be made, it seems like Jaden Kennedy just showed up on the screen and he made the tackle. He broke up a pass. He was just involved in the play. So Jaden Kennedy played excellent football, exceeded a lot of expectations, I think, this year. Aaron Flowers at safety, 70 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. Now, coming into the season, I think a lot of people were penciling in Kingston Lopa at the safety position beside Dylan Thieneman. And in fall camp, Aaron Flowers certainly bloomed. He was a defensive back there that looked like he was playing linebacker. He was excellent at running the alley, excellent, in playing the run. I mean, he hit really, really hard. And, this is another one of those redshirt freshmen. Another one of these young players on this Oregon team. Now, he needs to be better against dynamic passing attacks. He played his worst game of the season in the most important game of the season against Indiana in that semifinal in Atlanta. Okay, that was not good. I think that's putting it a little bit mildly. But he showed a ton of promise. In his very first year. I think there's guys that maybe had a little bit of ups and downs. I talked about Iffy before. Aaron's one of those guys where I'm like, I could see a really big jump from year 1 to year 2. Certainly think he can be an all-conference safety when all is said and done. Noah Whittington. God, Noah Whittington. Had his best season as an Oregon running back, 829 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns. Look, here's the thing. Noah was never going to be like the most talented back. Even like after the things that happened with Mekhi Hughes, and then the freshman kind of rose up a little bit. Even at that point, I never thought he would be like the bell cow. I think over the course of his career, he kind of always, there was some injuries. He was kind of nicked up for a couple of years, this year, being one of them. But he always kind of worked best when he was able to stay fresh, stay in that rotation, and get that big, powerful, explosive run. Of course, this was last year, but remember that run against Illinois where he just, lowered his shoulder at the goal line. This year, the Beastquake type run on that Friday night game against Minnesota. That'll go down in Oregon history as an all-time run. Nearly fumbled the ball at the goal line. So many emotions in one play. But this is a guy that just kind of stuck around. There's another guy on defense that we're going to talk about when we talk about our holy Wallowa winners. But man, he embodies kind of what it means to be a veteran piece of this program. There were many opportunities, I think, the last couple of years where he could have transferred out and been a primary number 1 back at another school, but he stuck around through everything. I think he had a child earlier this year, and he was able to experience his final year at Oregon, his first year as a father. So, just going through all roles in life during his time over here at Oregon. I think he was at Western Kentucky for a year or 2 before transferring into here. So remember, he was behind Bucky Irving, he was behind Jordan James, and then you have this year where he was kind of in there with the freshmen. So he's seen all sorts of guys come and go throughout that running back room. But he had a awesome year and very thankful for what he's done for this program. Ayapani Lalaolu, Pancho, the center. This was the true leader and the glue, not only on the offensive line, but I think of the team as a whole. I remember going all the way back to the spring. First press conferences for these coaches, really since the Rose Bowl loss last year. Will Stein was asked, who's going to be a leader on this team? Without hesitation, Pancho is what came out of Will Stein's mouth. And there was like in Ducks versus them and a lot of other things. It's just, you could tell how he kind of brought everybody together. It's big. It's huge to be able to have him back. And he anchored the interior of that offensive line. The combination with him and Emmanuel Pregnon at center and guard was lethal at times as far as run blocking. Kenyon Sadiq, 560 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns this year. Now, coming into the season, I would think, especially the receiving yards portion, that might be a little bit low. Overall, I thought Kenyon Sadiq was probably a little bit underutilized. Will Stein was the guy, right? He talks about feed the studs. He really wanted to distribute the ball in a lot of different places this year, where there could have been games where just like, get 18 the ball, get number 1 the ball. But we're specifically talking about Sadiq right now. I mean, Rutgers game stood out. I think, what did he have, 2 touchdowns there? 8 catches in the Minnesota game. That was his first game. Yep, that was his first game off of an injury where he missed the Iowa game, and he really came back with a vengeance. I could see Kenyon as being a guy that could be better utilized in the NFL and almost have a better NFL career than he did, especially like early in his NFL career, as opposed to his college career. That would not surprise me in and of the slightest. J-Mac, Jeremiah McClellan, 557 yards and 3 touchdowns, and a lot of that came in the back half of the season. Now, when you look forward towards next year and all the goodness that it could become for the Ducks, Jeremiah McClellan, I think, is a guy that established a role for himself in the starting rotation at wide receiver next season. I mean, so many just acrobatic catches, awesome catches on the sidelines. Some were ruled catches, maybe some should have been ruled catches. Looking at you, that Washington catch, that would have been one of the best catches maybe in college football history if he comes down with that one. But he put up some good big numbers towards the end of the year when there were injuries at the wide receiver position, when plays needed to be made. Jeremiah McClellan was one of those guys that certainly went out there and made plays, and he carved himself a role, no doubt about it, for Dante Moore in this passing game next season. Amari Washington at defensive tackle, 4.5 tackles for loss, 8 PBUs. That's something that really stands out to me. It seems like every game, it seems like he was batting down a ball. He was batting down 2 passes. He made it very difficult to throw the football over the middle. And, he wreaked havoc from the word go this season. And having him back next season, wow, that was one where I'm like, I was pretty sure that Amari was going to go to the NFL. Beginning of the year, middle of the year, even at the end of the year. I'm like, well, probably going to lose Amari Washington. But he's back. He's back for 2026, so that's going to be enjoyable to watch. But, yeah, he was just him and Bear Alexander, who I'm going to be talking about here in just a moment, it made life very difficult for interior offensive linemen. Let's talk about Bear. 50 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss. Now, he did not start the first 3 games of the season. That was Teon Gray. But, man, ever since the Penn State game, he kept up his level of play throughout the entire season. This was clearly his best season as a college football player. He always had this in him. He always had that dog in him, as they say, this type of play. And I think it was just a matter of the right situation, the right coaching staff, the right system to be able to get it out of him. And they allowed Bear to truly be the wild animal that he truly is. And he's going to be back next season as well. That's going to be a hell of a defensive tackle combination. Good luck opposing offensive lines. Not only good luck this year, but good luck with another offseason of these guys to be able to handle them up front. Mateo Uyunglele, I'll throw him an honorable mention. 6 sacks, 9.5 tackles for loss. Although his production wasn't at the level that it was last season, I thought Mateo was better against the run this year than he was last year. Now, he's got to do a little bit of a better job at kind of like finishing tackles behind the line of scrimmage. But overall, I thought he played really well at the line of scrimmage in the run game this year. So now if you can get his explosiveness in the pass rush really back to what it was in 2024 with the way he defended the run this year in 2026, you've got yourselves a hell of a prize over there. Jamari Johnson. I'll finish my honorable mentions with Jamari. Well, I got one more outside of Jamari. But 510 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, he was, when it comes to a yard standpoint, him and Kenyon Sadiq were right in the same ballpark. He only fell 50 yards shy of Sadiq this season. Now, I thought coming into the year, okay, Jamari Johnson might carve out himself a little bit of a role, but especially towards the end of the year when Kenyon Sadiq was a little bit banged up, Jamari stepped up. That's when they went to that 12 personnel look, and boy, was that fun to watch. It was fun to see Jamari really evolve and develop before our eyes later in the season when he needed to step up and make plays. I think he's going to be one of the best tight ends in America next season. Okay, we know they got Andrew Olish transferring in. We got Kendra Harrison coming in as a true freshman. It's going to be one of the best tight end rooms in the entire country next season, and Jamari Johnson is a big part of that, certainly. Let's talk about De'Ara Hill, 656 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns. he was that explosive running back. You remember earlier in the season, what was that, the game against Northwestern? I think is when he really burst onto the scene with a big-time run down the far sideline, parallel to Lake Michigan. The thing about Dier is, like, when you got him on those tosses, when you got him into open space, you had to hold your breath, and you never know what can happen. Like, the thing is, we'll talk about Jordan Davison in a minute. He was very much that powerful guy, whereas Dier Hill liked to live on the coast, man. Dier Hill is all about Cannon Beach. Dier Hill is all about Bandon. Dier Hill is about driving up that highway and seeing the Pacific Ocean out there. He likes to live out on the perimeter. He likes to live out on the coast by the sidelines, and his explosiveness was certainly on display. Explosiveness that Oregon hasn't had at the running back position, I think, in some time. So those are our honorable mentions. Man, there's a lot of good names in there. Let's go to our Holy Wallowa winners. At the top, quarterback Dante Moore. Over 3,500 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Boy, did he burst out onto the scene, man. But, it put everything we thought we knew about Dante Moore, about, at UCLA, maybe I should say all the doubts that we thought we had about Dante Moore from his time at UCLA quickly flew out the window. Especially that second game of the season against Oklahoma State. Cowboys were a terrible football team this year. That probably needs to be said right off the bat. But man, he was dealing. And then, of course, Penn State, I think there's going to be a lot of moments, a lot of memories that come from that game. Not only from Dante Moore, but from the entire season. But man, I remember ended up being that game-winning touchdown, gets out of the pocket, dips the shoulder, kind of throws around the defensive end, gets it to Gary Bryant Jr. For the touchdown to get in there and get the win. I mean, so many throws. I remember, the 20-plus yarder on the sideline to Malik Benson in the Iowa game. He's driving down the field, puts Oregon and Atticus Sappington in a position to kick the field goal to win that game in the rain out there in Iowa City. I mean, the Washington game, that big throw to Malik Benson, an absolute dart across the middle. He came up with some clutch throws. Now, Dante certainly has to, kind of work on his pocket presence and awareness and seeing all of his targets down the field. But, that's something that's, I think, hopefully over the offseason, that's going to make him a complete quarterback, maybe a potential Heisman winner, first overall draft pick type of guy like we saw out of Fernando Mendoza this season. But that's a pretty good first year. I always thought Dante had like this 2-year Bo Nix type of track record, and this was very similar to maybe like how Bo was in 2022, where it's like, okay, you see what it could really be. You see that you've definitely improved and taken steps under this Oregon coaching staff since, your first stops in college where it was iffy, for Bo and for Dante. And then, but Bo's season in 2023 was a really big step forward from 2022. Hoping 2025 and 2026 are similar things for Dante Moore. Jordan Davison, 667 yards, led Oregon with 15 touchdowns on the ground. He started the year by being like that short yardage, goal line back, and then he got more snaps. And all of a sudden he's getting 15 carries, he's getting 17 carries. He's that guy that can get better over time, that can run between the tackles. I talked about the evolution of Jordan Davison this season over on Scoop Duck, and it was just awesome to see how he evolved into that guy inside the 5, into a guy that was probably Oregon's best running back when all is said and done. Unfortunately, his season kind of got cut short due to an injury in the playoffs. But Jordan Davison, not only was he big and could run people over, but man, was he shifty. He's got insane potential next season. Like this season, I think, was an awesome starting point. Next season, he can be a 1,000-yard back. Next season, I cannot. He was one of my, you guys know, he was one of my favorite players on this team this season. I can't wait to see what he can do. Tatum Tuioti, 9.5 sacks and 6 tackles for loss. We talked about, hey, maybe Mateo wasn't at the level that he was production-wise in 2024, but Tatum took that step up in terms of a guy that can wreak havoc. I talked about it all year long when I was doing these same awards week by week. He's just a guy, 5 tackles. He's going to throw in a sack, maybe an extra tackle for loss. That's just what he's going to do each and every single week. He was so reliable. He was so honest throughout the season. Could play the run, could rush the passer with power. I mean, Tatum was awesome this year, and he's another guy that's coming back onto this team in 2026. Okay. Bryce Betcher, South Eugene, double walk-on. 136 tackles, 2 forced fumbles this year. He's got to be an all-time Duck. He's got to be up there, man. Considering, I'm sure, how many games he went to as a kid, sitting in this section, and he's talked about all of that with his parents. And then, he didn't have to come back. He could have went and played minor league baseball this year and gotten a start on his baseball career, but he came back. And he was kind of the heart and soul of that defense at the second level this season. So Bryce had himself a heck of a season in the middle there. And, man, just the way, it's an awesome story, awesome contributions, awesome development. Going into that 24th season, I'm not sure if Bryce was on the radar to be at the level that he was, but then he certainly popped onto the radar, stayed there, and became a mainstay of this Oregon defense over the past couple of years. Dylan Thieneman in the second half of the Caucasian Collision Unit. Man, when they figured out what Dylan could do in that Tampa 2 look, being that robber guy in the middle with maybe Kennedy and Flowers as the other safeties, that's where Dylan Thieneman really took off the runway. That's where he really became the awesome run defender that he was, and he really flashed what he could do. 96 tackles, 2 interceptions. Sealed the game against Penn State with an interception, one that nobody's going to forget anytime soon in the Pacific Northwest, and another one to seal the game against Washington. So although that number may not be as big as his freshman year at Purdue when he had 6 interceptions, boy, were those interceptions huge, and when they came again and against who they came this season. But yeah, Dylan had a phenomenal one season in an Oregon uniform. I think he did a lot to, really further his NFL status this season. Brandon Finney, man, he came in right away and just said, yeah, I'm the best corner on this team. I'm the guy. 6'2", 205 pounds. He can thump in the run game. Just week after week, you had a lot of zeros in his column because people didn't really target him a lot. And, we'll always remember that pick 6 against Indiana, that event that tied the game up at 20. That was electric. And then this game against Texas Tech where he had not 1 but 2 interceptions. That was one of the best games you'll see out of a corner against the Red Raiders in that Orange Bowl game where Oregon, of course, was victorious. But Brandon is man, he is going to be one of the best corners in the country. And maybe it's as soon as next season that he's going to be at that level. There's no doubt he deserves this award. I'm going to throw one to Malik Benson, leading receiver on this Oregon team, 719 yards and 6 touchdowns. But for me, it's November. It's making that catch against Iowa to put them into field goal range. It's the punt return and the 100-yard game against USC. It's the catch across the middle to really put Oregon ahead and really seal the deal against Washington. Breaking the W over his knee was fun as well for the Oregon faithful. So he really showcased his speed. I mean, the game against James Madison where he had a couple of deep touchdown catches, from passes from Dante Moore. Malik, I wasn't sure. We weren't sure what we were going to get of Malik. You could have told me, hey, Malik's going to be wide receiver number 6. He could maybe be wide receiver number 2 or 3 this year. Turns out he was wide receiver number 1. Turns out he put up the most production on this team. And, boy, you talk about Dylan Thieneman really helping out his case. Malik Benson really helped out his case to play at the next level. I'll end with Emmanuel Pregnon. I believe that he was the best offensive lineman on this team the entire year. I think coming in, he was maybe a 4th round, 3rd round draft grade. I think he really showed himself as one of the best offensive linemen in the country. And I think he is a big reason why this was a Joe Moore Award finalist offensive line. The thing about Pregnon playing guard at the college level, I can almost see him at tackle with his size. I could see him at tackle at the next level if they wanted to play him there. because he's a really good pass protector. He's the highest graded player in Oregon's offensive line as far as a pass block grade according to PFF and a run block grade according to PFF. So he's really good with that. And I think, so he's got some position versatility when he goes off to the NFL and, as he kind of gets ready for the combine and eventually the NFL draft in the spring. But I think it's that versatility and what he can do in multifaceted parts of his game that made things so well next to Poncho in there. So all of these players, it was so fun to follow them week by week, award these awards every single season. All y'all deserve one final Holy Wallowa. Final segment of the final show is incoming here on TSOW, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Still time to get in on the act over there. Indiana minus 7.5 right now over Miami in tonight's national championship game. My pick had a preview and prediction over at BTT last week. 31-17. I've got the Hoosiers going undefeated and claiming the national championship. Now, the national championship is somewhere that even dating back to the beginning of this season, Oregon had their eyes on for the 2026 season. It was always about 2026. 2025 was always a bridge to that run in the 26 season. And since the 25 season has ended, since we've kind of gotten off of that last part of the bridge and we've stepped into the season where Oregon looks to turn the 0 into a 1, one thing is crystal clear. Oregon is paying the price, but they're paying the price in multiple ways. Let's begin first with retention. No doubt that this Oregon staff had a plan that they were going to invest in experience. They were going to invest in those players that are maybe a little bit on the fence whether they want to go into the NFL draft or not. They know multiple year starters are going to be more of a proven thing and have more of proven success than bringing in somebody out of the portal, whether you don't know whether they're going to hit or not. Retention costs more money, but it is an effective use of money so far for this Oregon team. I mean, Dante Moore's coming back. The entire defensive line, Amari Washington, Mateo Uyunglele, Tatum Tuioti. How about Jamari Johnson at tight end is back? It was announced that DeCorian Moore was re-signed. Did not think that would go the other way, but it was announced regardless, right? The run towards the championship in 2026 is going to be built upon the guys that were announced that they are coming back right now. That's, like I said, it is not cheap to be able to bring back guys that would have been maybe an NFL draft pick in the top 3 rounds, maybe in the top 4 rounds. It's not cheap to be able to bring them back. And what happens when you pay a lot of money for Dante, for Amari, for Mateo, for Tatum, for Jamari, and for Iapani Olu, and some of these other players? Second team players that thought that they would have an opportunity to kind of step in and start, that have maybe been in the program for a year, for 2 years, maybe 3 years. Now all of a sudden there's not the opportunity, and the money that goes with that opportunity are no longer there. Like guys that really just stand out and slap you in the face about that opportunity are the defensive linemen that enter the portal. I mean, Terrence Green, he ended up transferring to Alabama. Tion Gray, he ended up transferring to Notre Dame. And all of a sudden, you looked at this defensive line that had a lot of really good depth this year. Jericho Johnson, I believe he ended up joining Tosh Lupoy over at Cal. He saw some time a little bit later on this season. Like a lot of this depth that was there, and there was a ton of depth on the interior of the defensive line. It's not there because a lot of that money that would have been starting money for maybe like a Tion Gray or a Terrence Green or somebody like that is now being put in to the Amari Washingtons of the world, to the Bear Alexanders of the world. We saw a lot of the defensive backs transfer. That was like during the playoff run for this Oregon team. So they're not only paying the price, seeing the retention of some of their top players, Meaning, hey, here's $4 million, $3 million, $2 million, however much money they're paying these people, but they're paying the price because they can't pay the price to some of these other players. And some of these other players have been sitting there and be like, this is supposed to be my starting opportunity. I got to go elsewhere. So now the depth isn't there. And Oregon has been like, it's been a program built on retention. Guys that have been recruited by Dan, they've been staying in this program. There hasn't been like a big mass exodus until this season. And the Ducks are learning, a lot like other teams have learned, you can't just sit there and stockpile recruiting classes. You can't just sit there and stockpile talent. This transfer portal exodus that Oregon has kind of dealt with, and all of the players that have decided to move on, some of them were a little bit surprising. Even someone like a Cooper Perry, who saw some action on the field this year as a freshman. I thought, hey, he might come back to battle for that slot position. But once again, starting opportunities and the money that comes along with them are few and far between when you invest this much money into some of your top players at the top. Recruiting is becoming a really interesting game right now across college football. Let me put it that way. It's turning into a trip to the casino, man. You got to know going in. When you go to the casino, if you carry $200, you got to have the expectation coming in that you might not have, that you're going to at least lose some right away. Your goal is to come out break even, $200, maybe a little bit more than $200, but you've got to know that there's a large possibility that you're going to take some losses. But you got to hit big, and you've got to be able to strike on a few of those big chips, don't you? In some of these recruiting classes. Okay, if there's a DeCorian Moore in that class, if there's a Brandon Finney in that class, if there's a Jordan Davison, if there's a De'Aaron Hill, if you strike and those players become all-conference players for multiple years, they maybe become an All-American or something like that. Like, that's how the recruiting game has really changed as far as like an elite program like Oregon is right now. Okay, so you got to strike on those big investments. And then when you're kind of in the midst of recruiting, you got to invest kind of in the right spots right now. Like, quarterback is a very interesting one that, Oregon is just one school, but I think there's other schools out there to be like, how much are we really going to spend on a high school quarterback? All these guys enter the portal at some point in time. Unless we can get involved with a can't miss 5-star, like a Bryce Underwood type of player, unless we can get involved in that. Oregon was involved in Jared Curtis early in this recruiting cycle, but we saw what happened with Jared Curtis, where he was committed to Georgia. They invested a lot of time and money in him, and he just ended up going and staying home at Vanderbilt. So with quarterback, these portal guys, Oregon has proven that with what they've been able to build around in the offensive line, the weapons, the coaching staff, that quarterbacks, they can just dip into the portal every year. Other fans might say, oh, you can't develop a quarterback. Or maybe there's transfer development. Maybe you can develop. It's just going at it a little bit of a different way. So this is kind of how the recruiting game kind of changes with and then it all starts at the top with bringing these players back. You got to understand that you're not going to be able to retain all of these guys and see the kind of the fruits of your labor. So investing time in recruiting is going to be something interesting to see how Dan Marshall and this entire staff kind of pivots. And it really shows like how talented these Oregon players are transferring out to see where they're going. I mentioned Gray going to Notre Dame. I mentioned Green going to Alabama. I think we've seen a couple of defensive backs going to Missouri. Like, they're going to Power 2 programs right now. So these aren't guys that kind of come in here that have failed and, they're going down to a G6 school or an FCS school. We've seen kind of some of that happen with other teams and other schools. Like, this Oregon and the remnants of all of these guys, they're going to be all conference players elsewhere. They're going to be really good contributors at other schools. And obviously you wish them the best in those types of situations. But this is kind of like the first year that Oregon has really seen this. And now it's all about adapting, and now it's all about acquiring that depth. I think when you look at the starting lineups for offense and defense projected right now for Oregon, you feel like you're in a great spot. The depth is maybe something that they're trying to shore up in the portal. We've seen some defensive linemen kind of come in recently, but you look like on defense. I talked about the entire defensive line coming back. You have Jerry Mixon coming back. We'll see all these young linebackers. Can Devin Jackson play better? Are they going to get a linebacker out of the portal? That's a big question right now. The defensive backfield, you're going to have Ifeoma Badegwu, Brandon Finney. You're going to have Aaron Flowers coming back. You got Coy Parrish. You feel really good about your secondary. So just maybe a couple more holes to fill on this defense for the Ducks. You go on the offensive side. Dante Moore is going to be one of, if not the best quarterback in the country. You've got a dynamic duo in the backfield at running back. Dink Riggs didn't enter the portal, which I thought was a little bit interesting to me. So he might be back as your third running back. We'll see what ends up happening there. Tredarian Ball kind of coming in as a freshman as well. Wide receiver, DeCorian Moore. Evan Stewart announced he's coming back. Jeremiah McClellan. They got Iverson Hooks coming in as a slot receiver transfer guy. Like, they're going to be fine there. I talk about Jamari Johnson, Andrew Olish, Kendra Harrison at the tight end room. They're stacked there. We know... Pancho and Dave Iuli is coming back. We're still waiting on Jordan Seaton. But if they can get Jordan Seaton at tackle, that's the best tackle they've had since Josh Connerly. Like that is a stud tackle that they did not have this year with Isaiah World or Alex Harkey out there. So you look at a lot of spots in these first 22, offense and defense combined for Oregon, and you really like the spot that you're in, but you paid the price to get there. This is the price that needs to be paid if you want to be a part of that national championship conversation, because now that's the step. You lost in the semifinals. It's about getting to the championship, and then once you're in the 60 minutes, it's about winning that football game. But these are the sacrifices that needs to be made, folks. Okay, we have reached the end, ladies and gentlemen. We have reached the final stanza of TSOW. Now, I want to do two things. I want to talk about what's next, and I want to send out some thank yous. First off, I want to thank a lot of people. Now, this is not going to be something where I'm like, hey, there's too many people to thank, so I'm not going to mention any people. I always think it's a little bit of a cop-out. Hey, throw some names, thank some people. Just say and recognize, hey, I might not be able to get to everybody, but I want to I want to say thank you to the people that have meant the most to me and this journey over the past year donning the green and yellow. First of all, I want to say thank you to the staff at Scoop Duck. I want to say thank you to Justin Hopkins, who gave me the opportunity to write, and I talked about it at the beginning, and kind of explore that world, whether this was for me or whether it was not for me. I had a really fun time learning about what it takes to pump out content on a website, and really all of that goes into it. So thank you, J-Hop, for doing that. And Max Torres, Tuesdays won't be the same on the Ducks Dish over there, but I'm sure we'll connect in some form or fashion here down the road. We got to say thank you to the Winter family. Of course, Ryan of Sportschat 503. He was big in kind of putting together everything when I visited out there at the Wild Duck and all that. And he's been awesome. He is Oregon through and through, man. I mean, that is the duck of all ducks. Let me put it that way. And then his son Darby actually designed my TSOW logo. So the Winters kind of played a big part in all of that. And then I've just got some fans that have really stood out to me. I want to say thank you to everybody that's commented and all that. I'm still not sure who I've been texting and who I've been talking to here, but Tony and Ian's Diamond Detailing out there in LeGrand, up in the holy Wallowas in northeastern Oregon, that account, because it just has the company account when they're commenting on YouTube, and then when it comes in on the TSOW text line, it kind of comes through as that as well. So thank you to whichever one you are. Thank you for being a part of it and being a supporter of this program. And, I know from what I've heard about people in northeastern Oregon, maybe they don't want all the attention. They want the farmland to stay there. They want everything to kind of be as it was, and don't want all these people kind of giving them attention. But man, the American Alps as they call it, deserve all kinds of attention. So they've been great to talk to. I met a couple of folks, Tom from Eugene, Rick from Eugene. Shout out to you guys. Fisherman Jim McDonald, shout out to you. I mean, there's a story that when I was visiting Oregon, Jim, avid fisherman in the Willamette River, caught some salmon. One was smoked, one was not, but we had to deliver it to me when I was out there. Ryan, who I mentioned before, had it, and when he was in Eugene, he didn't bring it over to the Wild Duck when we were there. So when I was going up the coast, I eventually got it, and we finally met up. And man, that salmon was absolutely elite. Best smoked salmon I have ever had. And I had some, I think, that was caught fresh from Alaska one time and brought home. That was really good, but this was elite. I remember the last day when I was out there in Oregon, my wife and I are having this smoked salmon that Jim caught from the Willamette River. Okay, we're dipping it in our Tillamook cream cheese. We're drinking this wine from Eugene that was gifted to us by Ryan, and we're sitting and staring right in front of us at Wallowa Lake. Is there a more Oregon combination? Is there a more Oregon thing you can do than that? I'm not sure if there is, but yeah, Fisherman Jim, you're the man. You're the man. Thanks for talking to me every game day and getting ready for all these games and the chats that we had over text message. Oregon Duck 90 on Scoop Duck and Twitter. We kind of talked throughout the season. You know, there was one of those viewers and listeners that kind of tuned in regularly. So we had all kinds of great guests here on TSOW. J-Hop was here. Max Torres was here. Travis Rookle from Ducks Rising also was here multiple times. We talked about Ryan. Dale Bliss from the Autzen Zoo, a part of the Fan-Sided Network, was here. So we had great viewers. We had great listeners. We had great guests. So now what's going to happen? Of course, my primary focus for football is going to return to Big Ten Ted. Oregon is one of the best audiences over there. So there's going to be a lot of Duck content over at BTT. So kind of just like it started, that is going to be my primary focus over there. So if you were a fan of BTT just for like my Oregon stuff, then it's like, I'm going to unfollow that and kind of come over to this TSOW thing. Make sure you kind of pivot back over there and follow back on BTT on all the podcast platforms and YouTube as well. Also, I think another reason why that I'm dropping this is I wanted one thing, for a lot of you know this, one thing besides football that I'm probably as passionate about it as football is the outdoors. I love hiking. I love the outdoors. Although I'm not the most in shape guy, I still climb the mountains, man. I'm huffing and puffing more than the other people on the trail sometimes, but I love it in and of the same. I have a YouTube, an Instagram, a TikTok that I've got going and looking to kind of turn it up a little bit now here in the off season, called Ted on the Trail. So if you're a fan of the outdoors, and I know a lot of you folks are out there in Oregon, make sure to follow. Probably going to have some stuff dropping from Crater Lake, from Silver Falls, and some of the other places, Mount Hood, and some of the other places that I was out there this summer, and some of the videos and content over there. So folks, that'll be it. I've loved this time. I've loved this year kind of with all of you, but the fact of the matter is we can't be young and free forever, right? The days seem like they go from 24 hours down to 20 hours, just like that. Time passes just like that. Even when I started doing Big Ten Ted stuff in 2020, it seems like time has gone by just like that. And this year has gone by that quick as well. So thank you once again to everybody out there that's watched. Thank you to everybody that's listened. Thank you to everybody that has supported me. Thank you to everybody that encouraged me to do the things that I did this year. I'm glad that I went through the experiences that I did. So for one final time, all of you deserve this, maybe even more than I do. You deserve the biggest holy Wallowa. Ted out.